How do we prepare young people for democratic participation? In Canada, rates of youth political participation are breaking all sorts of records. So, how do we prepare young people for democratic participation, for public life, or to simply be decent, thinking adults? As librarians and teachers, we can connect young adult readers with materials and learning tasks that will challenge them and help develop skills for critical thinking and lifelong learning. T.H. White's The Once and Future King engages readers in dialectic and self-reflection on many societal and personal questions. It's a political and moral critique about reconciling the individual with the broader social context, transcending private self to public self. Written in the mid-20th century, it deals with complex themes and concepts still relevant today, translating them for young adult readers and providing guidance for intellectual, social, and political maturation. White himself was a public school teacher in England, and The Once and Future King presents an alternative reinterpretation of Arthurian legend for instructing young readers how to think about and critique emerging ideological movements and industrialization. The author infuses elements from the World War II period, effectively translating the legend for readers at the time when it was written. This instructional aspect has helped the work remain relevant, enabling readers to draw parallels to today. Process matters more than specific content, as The Once and Future King guides readers on the process of shaping their identity, both private and public. Dialectic and self-reflection are the book's key elements, providing guidance on these processes, but providing no clear answers and leaving much of the interpretation and learning in the hands of the reader. It's an excellent support for young readers developing skills in self-reflection, inquiry, and critical thinking. The story spans 4 books written over 2 decades. Set in the fictional Greymere, it recounts the coming-of-age story of Arthur from childhood to king. On a grander scale, it symbolizes England's transition from feudalism to a modern power engaged in modern warfare. The story explores the overarching question, what is a justifiable war? Demonstrating how Arthur's perspectives and his political actions as king are shaped by experiences, personal relationships, self-reflection, and broader social context. This political dialectic unfolds through Arthur's relationship with his benevolent tutor Merlin, who challenges Arthur and readers to refine their inductive reasoning through reflection and in response to multiple perspectives. This dialectic narrative is driven forward through the 4 books by a diverse cast of characters, and supplemental storylines demonstrating how experiences of individual, intergenerational, and cultural trauma influence the process of developing the private and public self. Merlin is traveling backwards through time, which allows him to infuse knowledge and insights from the future, trying to change the might makes right paradigm during Arthur's timeline, and change the history that follows. But the character of Merlin does more than this. Though he succeeds in shaping a king who strives for ideological change, Arthur ultimately fails, killed in battle by his own son who advances the might makes right paradigm. Here we see Merlin as Thanatos, not so much a direct representation of death, but rather the inevitability of fate. However, Thanatos is resolved when Arthur, as he lies dying in battle at the end of Book 4, hands the torch over to a young page named Mallory, ensuring his ideas live on and easing Arthur's angst through the promise of regeneration. And here we also see a resolution to the question of free will versus determinism. Book 1 covers Arthur's childhood when his true identity is unknown and he is being fostered by Sir Ector, introducing the theme of the hidden hero as a force of good fighting evil, or as a means of reconnaissance, classic themes across literature, popular fiction, comic books, and film, enhancing the work's timelessness and relatability for young readers today. Merlin transforms Arthur into animals and insects, fostering experiential learning that explores different worldviews, providing Arthur with skills essential as future king. Diplomacy as a skill for survival and political gain is especially important, and is best articulated during Arthur's rendezvous with Sir Ector's falcons. Here we observe classical feudalism, its code of honor and deferential class structure, as Arthur performs traditional rites of respect. Interestingly, a female falcon holds top authority here, introducing the theme of gender equality and merit-based leadership. We also see a very different picture of the falcon Cully, prized by humans as a fierce hunter, but considered mentally unstable by his peers. Arthur endures a gauntlet standing near Cully's enclosure, while Cully struggles to restrain himself from violence. Each transformation gives Arthur a skill he needs to dislodge the sword from the stone and uncover his true identity and birthright at the end of Book 1. And here we learn a critical insight. Arthur does not want to be king. Book 2 opens with the introduction of the contemptible Queen Morgase, Arthur's unknown half-sister, and her 4 horrible sons, exemplars of wanton and unchecked violence and destruction due to a lack of self-reflection. Morgase's ambition and unchecked cruelty propel her sexual pursuit of her half-brother Arthur, bearing him the son Mordred, against whom Arthur's ultimate failure is realized in battle, returning him full circle to where his education with Merlin began. These characters offset the pivotal debate between Arthur, Merlin, Sir Kay, and others in Book 2, where Arthur defines his code of chivalry and decides the purpose for the Knights of the Round Table as a state militia. Book 3 introduces Sir Lancelot, insecure and sadistic, striving through self-reflection to forge a heroic identity, self-correct behavior, and suppress his inclinations towards wrongdoing. Lancelot emulates Arthur's chivalrous ideal as a way to mask his shortcomings and insecurities. He reveres Arthur, but falls in love with Arthur's wife, Queen Guinevere, creating new sources of guilt and torment. The love triangle consumes these three, as Arthur, out of fairness, allows the affair. This presents an interesting theme: altruism with ill consequences. For millennial readers, for whom altruism and community service are common values, this storyline may guide reflection on balancing sacrifice in their own lives. Arthur's foster brother, Sir Kay, is painfully aware of falling short of expectations and of his shortcomings next to Arthur. But Kay remains loyal to Arthur and makes a good life for himself that accommodates his limitations. Together, Lancelot and Kay advance the theme of identity construction, reconciling one's own limitations or flaws, and overcoming identities constructed and imposed on us by others and by social contexts. Robin Hood, another hidden hero introduced as Robin Wood, represents the sympathetic outlaw in his own homeland, lending righteousness to Arthur's political agenda as he fights beside him. Alongside Robin, Maid Marian introduces the concept of gender equality and the exploration of feminist identities. And then there's old King Pellinore and his decades-long pursuit of the questing beast Gladysent at the expense of a life with a woman he loves. While serving as comic relief, Pellinore does three very serious things in the narrative. His ridiculous battle with Sir Gramore shatters Arthur's idyllic view of knighthood, allowing Arthur to redefine his concept of heroism. King Pellinore undermines Thanatos by repeatedly overcoming inertia. He abandons his pursuit of the questing beast and marries his true love. He and Sir Gramore overcome the momentum of their armor and renew their friendship. And old Pellinore adopts the code of chivalry, overcoming the adage, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." Pellinore demonstrates both the futility of fantasy and its role in reconciliation. His quest for the beast was not meaningless. It gave him capacity to finally transcend fantasy, embrace reality, and change his circumstances. As an adult reader, I connected more with the serious side of Pellinore's storyline and found the comic relief somewhat tiresome. However, this comic aspect may help keep younger readers engaged to discover these deeper meanings. Overall, The Once and Future King shows young readers how childhood experiences influence identity development and shape one's thinking and actions as adults. It translates important complex questions, engaging readers in dialectic and self-reflection. It demonstrates the process of reconciling trauma, flaws, and failures, and how one may resolve these and move forward. Now, The Once and Future King is long, but it is fast-paced. It's not as dense as Shakespeare or Tolkien, but does contain similar themes, elements, and devices. It offers an introduction that may help young readers to progress to these more complex writers, and may be more accessible and encouraging for reluctant readers. It is an ethnocentric work with cultural misrepresentations and stereotypes, and even some ethnic slurs. But this is no reason for censorship. It offers teachers and librarians an opportunity to guide young readers in exploring these things in context. The work is clearly an expression of Western philosophy, with the underpinnings of democratic political thought, but guides young readers in thinking about non-democratic ideologies emerging today and what constitutes the good life. Themes and concepts are overtly presented, but not to the point of being contrived. This may turn off some adult readers, but it makes the work more accessible for younger readers needing this type of scaffolding. It's a form of guided reading which may reflect the author's own pedagogical skill. The Once and Future King has been interpreted on stage and in film. Arthurian legend in general continues to be retold across contemporary media, providing supplemental resources for young adult readers to connect with this story today. Well, thanks for joining me for this discussion. Next time on Bookmarked X, we'll explore feminist identities in Divergent and The Hunger Games.